Hello and welcome back to Bits and Bobs. Today we'll be talking about the history of the groat, a coin used all throughout history. But what is a groat? A groat is a coin worth 4 pence, which is 1/3 of a shilling and 1/60th of a pound. So, now we know what it is, let's learn all about the groat through history. The story of the groat begins in medieval times. Now, back in the very early days of British coinage, the only coin was a 1 pence coin. So, to have 4 pence, you'd literally need 4 pence or 4 penny coins. This system worked for a long time, but as inflation got bigger and bigger, more higher valued coins were needed for bigger purchases. And so, the first groat was issued under the reign of Edward I, minted between 1272 and 1307. However, not many of this coin were made, and they weren't in as general circulation as other coins, and so, for a 4 pence purchase, it was very likely that other coins were being used and not the groat, as not many of them were made during the reign of Edward I. And none were made until 1327, when Edward III took the throne. Here is an Edward III groat. So, this coin features a long cross and 2 legends around the inside part of the coin on the reverse, and the obverse features a crowned portrait of Edward III looking straight out of the coin. We even see his name, Edward, here at the top of the coin on the obverse. Here we see a Richard II groat. While the reverse may look similar, as you've seen by the arrow, the name Richard now takes the place of where it said Edward, to tell what monarch is what, as the portraits did look very similar back in the day. This design for the groat, obviously with the changing monarch's portrait and name of the monarch, was used for centuries, all the way until Henry VIII changed the design. So, firstly we can see a more detailed portrait of the monarch, as it was around this time that the portraits became more realistic. And change came to the reverse as well. Rather than featuring the 2 legends and the long cross, we now see a long cross quartering the royal shield of arms on the design of the groat of Henry VIII. On the groats of Elizabeth I, we also now see the portrait of the monarch facing to the side, a tradition that would stay, and once again on the reverse we now see, as commonly used, the long cross through the royal shield of arms. After Elizabeth I, the next monarch under which groats were minted was Charles I. We see here a 1644 groat. The date is at the top. There are 4 Roman numerals marking that this is a 4 pence coin next to the left-facing portrait of Charles I, and on the reverse we see a very detailed and intricate shield with a garter around and the legend around the very edge of the coin. A lovely design. This is a groat from the reign of Charles II. We also see 4 Roman numerals next to his portrait, also facing left, and on the reverse we see now a legend and the royal shield, which has been simplified somewhat since the design on his father's coinage. Now, it is also worth noting that Charles II introduced Maundy money, and in the Maundy sets each year there was of course a Maundy 4pence. Here we see one from his reign from 1683. These were not issued for circulation, but given out to the poor by the king as a gesture of goodwill, although they were legal tender. But the Maundy coins soon became a collector's item, and they still are today, especially with the added history. Now then, only the Maundy 4pences were minted under the early King Georges. That's George I, II, III and IV. By the reign of George IV, the Maundy 4pences looked like this. With modern minting methods, they were all precisely the same weight and diameter. And this is the design that would stay until present day, 200 years later from that coin being made. Now, when William IV took the throne, big change came to groats. As well as issuing Maundy 4pences, William IV also issued 4pences for circulation, or groats for circulation. Rather than featuring the usual crowned number design, we now see Britannia, with the date underneath, a similar style design to pennies and halfpennies at the time. Now, as we go into the reign of Queen Victoria, this type of coin also stayed the same. That is the design and it being circulated, with Maundy 4pences and groats for circulation being issued. These new circulating groats, or 4pences, were made of 925 sterling silver, and weighed 1.89 grams with a diameter of 16 millimeters. In this time period, these coins were quite common in circulation, and the denomination even lasted long enough to see Queen Victoria's Jubilee head portrait on the obverse. However, this coin we see, the 1888 4pence, was the last year 4pences were minted for circulation. Queen Victoria's son, Edward VII, issued Maundy 4pences, as did all the monarchs leading up to Elizabeth II. As we can see here, they're still struck in 2022, featuring the young head portrait of the Queen as Maundy traditions. The set we see here will be the last Maundy set, including the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, as from next year, 2023, the Maundy sets, including that Maundy 4pence, will feature the portrait of King Charles III, presumably the one by Martin Jennings, as he doesn't have a young head portrait to use, as this is his first portrait. And so there we go, That is the history of the groat coin, or fourpence, whichever term you prefer. Thank you for watching, and please remember to subscribe, as we put a lot of effort into these videos, and subscribing really means the world to us. So we'll see you next time on Bits and Bobs, and Merry Christmas!